The markets are going to explode October, November, December. Here's the thing. It's important to understand economic cycles. It's important to have a game plan. What I'm going to share with you is my opinion, and I'm going to be open and transparent with you exactly what my system is. I'm going to share with you what my investments are and my Capital DR strategy on exactly how I do this. I've been sharing exactly what I've been doing since 2020. This is just a cycle, guys. Everything, to include you, operates in a cycle. Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, sometimes things get thrown out of whack. Like this year, it's been a little wacky, but it always follows a cycle. What goes up must come down. Has your relationship ever been perfect all the time? Nope. Has business always been just cranking and making profit? Nope. Everything operates in a cycle. So now we're heading into October. That's why I'm so stoic and calm. I just follow cycles, and I have a system, not hype, not get rich quick, a system. Okay, so October usually goes up. November should boom in crypto, and December. That's why I have a strict profit taking plan during this timeline. I don't wait for price predictions. I don't follow hype influencers. I have a very strict plan and I follow it. And I'll explain the whole thing in just a moment. Okay, so naturally though, not just in crypto guys, the fourth quarter in financial markets are much better. They're much more bullish. We own a financial firm. We own a brokerage. In fourth quarter, our financial firm has huge profits because people start making financial decisions. Sell in May, go away. June, July, people are going on summertime. They spent a shitload of money. So in September, maybe they need to pull some investments. This is just thinking about maybe what's happening, right? The markets are dead in summer. Fourth quarter, business owners, a lot of them haven't paid their taxes till October, so they're making big financial decisions. They're making moves. People start to think more about their finances. We're kind of going into hibernation, winter, so they want to save more. They want to invest more. Do you see? It's a cycle. Now, within the cycle, it could be bigger, it could be smaller. So we know that the markets are going to be favorable on the back end of the year. We also have other catalysts. So if he lowers interest rates twice, crypto is going to do very well because people are going to be moving from a inflationary US dollars making poorer every single second when they lower interest rates and print money into fixed supply assets. Okay, so here's how my system works. There's zero emotion. I'm stoic. I don't follow hype, get rich quick. What I tell you is what I do, and it's worked really well for my family. So for 2020, I built an ecosystem. I've added to it along the way, and this is what I've landed on, and it's worked very well. I'm in phase 2 now. I call it Capital DR. C is cash flow. Cash is trash. I move my cash flow, you don't have to do this, I'm just explaining to you what I do, into deflationary assets that have fixed supply. Hence Bitcoin and XRP. XRP has a fixed supply and a burn mechanism, becomes more valuable and more scarce. Bitcoin is extremely valuable and extremely scarce. So I move my cash flow into A, appreciating assets that have fixed supply that are opposite of the US dollar that can just be printed and debased every single day. So then P is protection. As we go into parabolic moves, there's zero emotion. On the back end of the year, I think it's ridiculous not to take profits. Now you may be in a different phase. If you're just starting to accumulate, just hold till next bull run. But I've been holding and accumulating for 5 years. So of course I'm going to take profits. Now we're going to hold Bitcoin forever, and I'll put that in L. But altcoins, all my other cryptos, I'm going to exit 50% on the way up if it hits my targets. If it doesn't, I just hold and keep accumulating. Okay. When I pull profits, well, what do I do with that money? I don't buy Lambos, Ferraris, and try to impress people I don't like. I buy protection and more cash flow, just like I did from 2020 to 2024. I put my profits, I first max fund my Index Universal Life. I use cash value life insurance. We use them properly. They need to have money in them. They need to be funded properly. The insurance agents shouldn't be maximizing the death benefit. They should be minimizing the death benefit to get the maximum growth for the cash value. They're life insurance. We use them during our life. I have permanent insurance for my family, legacy for my family. And guess what? This is why people don't understand insurance, is it falls into the L category. So when I pull profits from my assets, I'm putting it into protection. And guess what I can do with that protection? If I put $100,000 in there, and these are all, there's different policies and stuff. But imagine if I could borrow 60% of that within the first year at 5%. Now I can leverage my own assets, my own bank, at 5% and do what? Beat the hurdle rate. So if I borrow 5%, $60,000, and I put it back into Bitcoin, that grows 50% every single year, I crushed the hurdle rate. So if I borrow at 5, inflation is 3, I just got to beat the 8%, and now I multiplied my money, richest man in Babylon. We also put Bitcoin in the leverage category. And I leverage my Bitcoin, my digital assets at low leverage, specifically Bitcoin at only 25% of my overall portfolio because you will get liquidated if you don't know how to do it. And I do what? I buy more cash flow because cash is trash. I'm not saying you have to buy things like XRP and Bitcoin. I use them because I understand them. But what you do need to understand is inflation and interest rates. The general public goes to school, gets a job, they get a $100,000 job after a $100,000 education. A huge payment for that education, and then they go extend their buying power and buy a $30,000 car. And what the general public does is they ask, what's the payment gonna be? They should be asking, what's the interest rate gonna be? Because you're extending your buying power by 130,000, but you didn't increase your income. The interest rate is going to erode your future growth and your wealth. And the car is going down in value, and you have a hidden taxation, which is inflation. So the American dream is actually the American trap because you're making the banks wealthier because they're beating the hurdle rate. Watch that over and over again and you'll understand my system. So I take cash, which is trash, and I move it into fixed supply assets. My Bitcoin grew 200% since 2020. My XRP grew 800% since 2020. US dollar went down 24% in its purchasing power since 2020. So who won in that scenario? It doesn't matter if you buy XRP or Bitcoin. It's learning to beat inflation in the hurdle rate. So if inflation is 10%, you're borrowing at 3, and you're in a dollar that's deflating, you're getting poor every single minute. So think of inflation like this. You're sitting in a hole. Every year they're pouring dirt into the hole. That's inflation. They're pouring 3% dirt into the hole. Your dollar that you own is getting less and less. The hole's getting deeper. Then you're putting a backpack on, which is debt. So you keep monetizing debt to increase your buying power. That backpack's getting heavier. You're getting buried the hole's getting bigger, you're going deeper. And what the wealthy are doing is how do they get to the middle ground and grow? They beat the hurdle rate by putting it into investments, not into liabilities. So there's only assets and liabilities in the system. One man's assets or another man's liabilities. That's it. There's only debt in the system. One person owns the system, one person consumes the system. So you have to start thinking differently. In America, we spend and we save. You should be saving than spending. I started investing 10% of my income, then 30% of my income, 40% of my income. Now I invest over 100% of my income. Like, well, what do you mean 100% of your income? I kept my salary the same with my company. I kept my bills the same with my companies. I started building wealth from the equity that I owned in the companies and my dividends. I didn't increase my lifestyle. So my investing went from 10% to 20% to 30%. And then when I want something, I put it into an asset that produces cash flow to pay for that something. So I'm beating inflation. Warren Buffett's not inflation or interest rate sensitive. They're just using inflation and interest rates to move money through the system. You don't need the next best crypto. You need financial literacy and a system to beat inflation. So I hope this education helps. I'm just sharing with you guys exactly what I do. I love you guys. I appreciate you. As we always say, Warriors, rise, get your shit together. It's here, baby.